Alright, so I'm sure we can all agree, especially in 2024, that the underground is a very hectic place. I feel like now more than ever, there's so many different artists and so many different sounds. Like, there's just really something for everybody nowadays. And something people really don't talk about is the amount of so-called subgenres that have sprouted over the past few years. And at first, I feel like they weren't really taken as seriously because the underground was still kind of niche. Like, you really had to be tapped in to understand what people were talking about when they even mentioned certain subgenres. But as I guess the fan base grew, so has the amount of people claiming they invented this new sound or this new style is up next. And it's really weird because I feel like a lot of the time the music that they're claiming is new has already been done, or like they just put a slight variation on something that already existed. It's not really different enough to classify it as a separate subgenre. So in today's video, I thought we'd look at some of the more popular and unpopular subgenres in the underground and decide once and for all if they're actually real or if people are just trying to be different. And if I forget something that you thought I should have covered, then definitely leave it in the comments. But as I said before, I literally cannot cover everything because there's just so many different sounds and styles in the underground. Alright, so before we get into some of the more questionable ones, I thought we should go over the ones that everybody can universally agree are real. Like, everybody agrees that these are actual subgenres. Starting off with the godfather of many of the others we're going to be talking about in this video is plug. Now, if you have no idea what plug is, or maybe you've heard the name before but like you're not really too sure about what it is, then I did make 2 videos about it, so go check those out. But just a quick little overview. So plug was derived from Beethoven, like Beethoven's OG sound in the early 2000s and like the late 2010s, and they got the name because there was a group called the Beat Plugs, and they all came together to make the same style of Beethoven influenced type beats. And then from there it just gradually started going nuts to the point where the OG SoundCloud wave was pretty heavily plug based. Think like Playboy Cardi, D Savage, OG Lucky, like artists like that. And I would say the 2 most important names from the OG plug wave were Mexico Dro and Stupid Cool. Without those 2, plug would literally not exist in the form that it does today. So yeah, I think I can say with a lot of confidence that plug is definitely a real subgenre. I don't think anybody would disagree there. And I think a lot of y'all would be surprised to hear that most of your favorite artists have made plug songs. Like, just look up their discography. They definitely have a plug song or 2 just in the vault somewhere. So the next subgenre is not only directly related to plug, but I feel like it's a low-key more popular than plug nowadays, and that's pluggnb. And I feel like a lot of y'all confuse plug and pluggnb, and I mean, I can't blame you because the names are pretty similar, but they're actually 2 pretty distinct sounds. So the name pluggnb literally just means plug in R&B, and like that's basically what the subgenre is. It's just plug but like mixed with some R&B influences. And I know there's a whole debate about who was the first artist to make pluggnb, like who started making pluggnb songs first, but strictly from a producing standpoint, you have to give most of the credit to Zangang. Zangang is literally the blueprint for most modern pluggnb producers, and I feel like without his melodies, without his drums, without his kicks, you know what I'm saying, like there would literally be no pluggnb as it is today. But yeah, I don't really have to get too much more into it. I mean, everybody agrees that pluggnb is a subgenre in the underground. So the last one I'm going to talk about in the objective category is one that I think is pretty much dead nowadays, but I feel like I kind of have to include it because it was at one point one of the biggest in the underground. And if you haven't guessed already, I'm talking about Rage. I know a lot of y'all probably just cringed when I said that, but objectively, Rage is one of the most popular sounds in the underground from like 2020 to 2021. And y'all can say whatever y'all want about who started Rage. I mean, I really don't care, but once it got popular, everybody and their mama was trying to hop on a Rage beat. And I feel like Rage is one of those rare subgenres that actually scratched mainstream because, I mean, even some of these more popular artists were hopping on Rage beats like The Baby and Sway Lee. Nowadays, Rage is dead. I mean, nobody makes Rage in the style that they used to make it back in the day, but I feel like the influence is still there. Rage, in my opinion, still has a little tiny foothold in some of these modern beats. Now, I'm not a producer, so I don't know like the actual terms, but I mean, y'all who know what I'm talking about, y'all know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's the objective list in my opinion. There might be a couple more, but I don't think they're really that important. So next, we're gonna get into some of the more obscure and controversial subgenres. Starting off strong, we got hood trap / jerk music. And off rip, I already hate the name. Hood trap is just corny. It sounds like a white kid made it. And then I guess the name jerk comes from like the OG dance that people used to do back in the old days. I don't know how that became a name for a subgenre, but I guess. But when I tell you that this is easily one of the most gentrified and played out subgenres in the underground, I sincerely mean that. The little era where everybody was hopping on the same cash pan beats from YouTube and just spamming SoundCloud, honestly, like you just had to be there. And speaking of cash paint, I'm pretty sure that's the name of the person who created the entire subgenre, so yeah, blame him for everything that happened. Now you might be asking yourself, what exactly is jerk music? And don't worry, I got y'all. This random internet article is about to tell us. Hood trap, also known as jerkin B, is a subgenre of hip-hop inspired by its predecessor, jerk/jerkin. It is distinguished from the original jerk music by its dense synth work and plug-and-b inspired melodies, vocal chants, and more complex snare-heavy drum patterns that follow the original jerk beat and rhythm. Hood trap music is often found in tight beats, which are beats and instrumentals that can be sung or rapped over. This style was started by the hip-hop producer Cash Payne and other members of the 1C Collective. It is characterized by its pop culture references and late 2000 visuals that pay homage to the first wave of jerk music. So there y'all have it. That is the definite definition of jerk music. On a serious note, shout out to whoever wrote that article. Pretty good summary in my opinion. I would say jerk really popped off around like late 2022. I know Xavier released Patch Made in like July of that year, but it didn't really blow up until later. But I would say the release of Patch Made signified the start of the jerk wave. The song is what really brought attention to Cash Payne, and everybody started stealing his beats off of YouTube. And we had so many different artists blow up from that sound, like Netspin, Yapo JJ, and obviously Xavier. So to cap everything off, I would definitely consider jerk/hood trap its own genre. It's made enough waves in the underground, and it definitely has its own distinct style. Yes, it is annoying, and yes, it is played out, but unfortunately, it is a subgenre. So next we have a style that is equally as played out as jerk music, but it might be a little bit more cringe, and that's dark plug. Again, another name that's just bad. I've seen people call this genre evil plug, and that might take the award for the worst genre name of all time. Y'all let me know which one's worse, hood trap or evil plug. Now I kind of have a soft spot for this style of music because for a long time it was literally all I listened to, but it just got old quickly because people just started calling anything dark plug. So I'm gonna explain to y'all what dark plug really was at its core. Now when y'all think of plug, I'm sure y'all think of the happy, whimsical type melodies. A lot of the OG plug beats were literally inspired by video games like Super Mario and The Legend of Zelda. And in addition to the program used, which was Purity, it just gave plug its own distinct sound. And from there, a lot of producers would just innovate on this sound like they did with pluggnb. And coincidentally, one of the first producers to start making dark plug was Zangan. Now if y'all really want to hear where I think dark plug truly started, then check out the Cutthroat EP by Slimecedo. It has 3 songs produced by Zangan, and that right there is what I would consider like real dark plug. It maintains the OG style of plug, but Zangan puts his own twist on it by adding darker melodies and just different 808s and different drums. Honestly, just listen to the entirety of RSG, that's Rich Slime Gang, Slimecedo's collective. Listen to their entire discography in full if you want to hear some authentic dark plug. They were the ones who really pushed that wave and I guess made it popular in the underground. I also want to give credit to the producers because they're really the entire blueprint behind the sound. So like Casso, 2 Times, Sensei ATL, and the entirety of Surreal Gang. There's a lot more, but I can't remember them right now. So what exactly went wrong? Well, I feel like dark plug started dying when people started calling anything dark plug. And when I say anything, I mean like TDF/Perk 40 type beats. And let me get this straight. I would say that Perk 40 has definitely made some beats that I would consider dark plug. Like I'm gonna put a few on the screen if y'all want to check them out. And overall, you can tell that he was influenced by a lot of the OG plug producers and then a lot of the OG dark plug producers I mentioned. But my problem is that people call every Perk 40 beat a dark plug beat. Like dude barely even makes beats in that style. I don't understand like why people call his beats dark plug. Like dude will pop out with the most happy beat ever and then people will say, oh, is this dark plug? Is this dark plug? Like y'all really gotta use y'all ears, man. But shout out Perk though, one of my favorite producers in the underground. In TDF, I don't know who started calling TDF beats dark plug, but what TDF makes is literally not even adjacent to plug in like any shape or form. He can definitely cook up a dark beat like with the crazy 808s and whatever, but it's not plug. Like there's literally no elements of plug in this beat. Now if y'all want to hear an example of modern day dark plug, then just check out Bullymon, Tuvert, and 30. Nowadays they barely make beats in that style, but I would say their early stuff was heavily dark plug adjacent. If y'all were there in the OG Smoking Skull era, then you know what I'm talking about. So my verdict for dark plug is that it was a subgenre. At its peak, it was fire, but nowadays it's just whatever. All right, so just to get them out the way, I'm gonna go over the other plug subgenres because there's a lot of them. And I feel like it's almost a meme at this point, like how everybody just adds plug to the end of anything. So first up, we got something called dream plug. And I really hear this term used a lot in conjunction with Boofpack Mookie, Young Brando, and like modern stupid cool beats. It's very ethereal. Like when you're listening to dream plug, it's like you're floating in space. I personally wouldn't really consider this a separate subgenre just because it's still plug, but like it's just less aggressive 808s and softer melodies. And also there's not that many producers and artists that really make songs in this style. So next up is is Baneplug. Now, Baneplug is a name that I would always hear, but I was never really too familiar with it, and I honestly didn't understand what it even sounded like or who even made Baneplug. But by looking online, it seems like it was created by this producer called Balenci02. So after looking him up on SoundCloud, it seems like he really only works with 1032op, who's the SoundCloud OG. But I listened to the songs they have together, and I don't understand why people are calling this plug. I guess you could call the melodies somewhat plug adjacent, but everything besides that is literally just regular trap. And also, if there's only one artist and one producer making the sound, then how is it a subgenre? Overall, I'm gonna have to give this one a no, I'm sorry. Next is Asian rock, which I guess is more of a plug and B subgenre than it is a plug subgenre, but I'm gonna still include it because whatever. So this sound was always kind of funny to me because it's literally just Benji Cole type beats. It's dead ass producers just copying Benji Cole the best and claiming it's a whole different subgenre. But according to Benji, I guess he was just influenced by like Japanese music and he added it to pluggnb and just made his own sound. Asian rock is kind of up in the air for me because I mean a lot of people do make that sound, but because it's based on one person, you can't really vary too much from the original and you can't really like put your own twist on it. I've never heard an Asian rock beat that was actually original but kept the essence of the OG Benji Cole sound. I'm gonna put it like this: if I hear your Asian rock beat and I can imagine the
Benji Cole, why you ice
tag at the beginning, then you know. So if y'all want to consider it a separate subgenre, then I guess, but personally I don't think it makes much sense. The last plug subgenre I'm going to discuss that anybody actually cares about is ambient plug. And at first glance you might be wondering, wait, didn't you just talk about that? What's the difference between ambient plug and dream plug? Though the names do sound similar, they're actually pretty different. So like I said before, dream plug is like more atmospheric, but it's still at the end of the day plug. But with ambient plug, it's like a little bit more experimental. I would say this sound really started as a result of Isaiah TG. It sounds like glazing, but once you look into it, you'll realize that a lot of the people that make that sound started off working with Isaiah TG or making Isaiah TG type beats. So a lot of the OG Slay prods like Gianni, Wi-Fi, and Sad Ballmain were like the blueprint for this entire sound. And back then, I would say it was more adjacent to like trap than it was to plug, but as time went on and more producers added their own twist to it, it definitely became more of like a plug-based genre. Some of the notable producers in this style came from groups like Crest and Requiem when they were still a thing. And honestly, even though it was niche, it was a pretty established sound from like 2020 to 2021. Now in 2024, it is pretty much a dead sound just because there's not much room for growth. If you make ambient style music, then you're basically boxing yourself in, which is why most artists that used to make ambient music switched it up, like 1AM and Ian. It just gets old really quickly. But all that to say, it definitely is a subgenre because a lot of people were making it, a lot of artists and a lot of producers. And who knows, maybe somebody could come along and revive it because for the time, it honestly was pretty cool. The last genre I'm gonna talk about in this video is one that's actually blowing up quite a lot over the past few years, and that's new jazz. I didn't realize how big this sound had gotten until I looked it up on YouTube, and I saw videos with hundreds of thousands of views, even some with 1 million views. I'm not gonna lie, I was just ready to completely dismiss this as not a genre, but like when I saw random people who probably don't even know what the underground is making new jazz type beats, I was like, wait, hold up. So new jazz was really created by two people, Amir Prod and Lunchbox, and these two have been dropping songs together since mid to late 2022. Now what's funny about the genre is that it's called new jazz, but when you listen to the actual music, there's like no jazz instruments involved whatsoever. And at first I was like, wait, like I don't hear any instruments or anything, but I'm not a producer, so maybe I'm just not picking up something. But as I listened to more Lunchbox and Amir's songs, I got more and more confused. But according to Lunchbox himself, this is the actual reason why new jazz got its name.
Is there like a name for like your sound? Like I don't know, like I guess.
I mean, right now we calling it new jazz. You feel me?
New
like,
jazz?
Yeah, we calling it new jazz because like a lot of people have been pointing out, and like I got this new producer named Amir. A lot of people been pointing out, and like his production and shit is like, it's like remnants of a saxophone or something, like of like just like jazz, like the rhythm is like, you get what I'm trying to say? So we just been trying, I don't even know what to call it for real though.
Yeah.
But that's what we've been calling it right now, new jazz, you feel me?
I understand his line of reasoning, but you literally took a pre-existing genre name and just used it for yourself. And the music couldn't sound any more different. So like, it's just weird, to be honest. But name controversy aside, the music is actually pretty solid, I'm not gonna lie. Lunchbox is actually a pretty good rapper. His flows are solid. He has some bars here and there. And then Amir, Like, all I'm gonna say is Amir knows how to make beats. I think overall, Lunchbox and Amir complement each other perfectly. And even though I still don't agree with the name New Jazz, I understand what Lunchbox is trying to say with the explanation. My biggest problem with labeling New Jazz as a genre is that it's literally only two people. Name one person who makes new jazz music besides Lunchbox. You can definitely name artists who have hopped on new jazz beats, but their most popular songs aren't new jazz. The most popular songs in new jazz are just Lunchbox songs. And even on the producing end, like, there's a lot of tight beats on YouTube, but I mean, those people aren't really making new jazz on the regular. Amir is the only real new jazz producer. It's basically the same situation as Asian rock. I feel like Amir and Lunchbox just conflated their own style with an actual genre. Like, y'all can have your own sound, but saying you made a whole genre is too far. If anything, you just spawned a bunch of type beat makers and a bunch of Lunchbox clones. So unfortunately, I wouldn't consider this a subgenre, but I still do like Lunchbox a lot. I thought his latest album was really good. Anyways, that's the end of the video. I'm already knowing somebody's gonna say I missed the genre, but I'm not gonna lie, I really only wanted to talk about ones that are relevant right now. If it was relevant in like 2011, then obviously I'm not gonna talk about it. Let me know which one's your favorite out of all the ones I talked about and which one has the most potential to go mainstream. But yeah, I appreciate all y'all who watched the video. I'm gonna try to get a little bit more consistent with this YouTube stuff instead of uploading like once or twice every year. But yeah, I'm gonna catch y'all in the next one.